Welcome to the Dead Arm Dynasty podcast, where we try to give a refreshingly candid take on the long-term fantasy value of football players throughout college and the NFL for all you Devy League, Campus to Canton, and Dynasty fantasy football managers. We're just three friends who spend all our time talking fantasy anyway, so we figured why not get a few mics and capture our conversations. My name's Rick, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Josh Pecoraro and Jacob Ellis, a.k.a. Jealous. Welcome back to the show. Back to the Dead Arm Dynasty podcast. Moving on with our divisional breakdown episodes, we are jumping into the NFC East, everyone's favorite division today, because it is just so loaded with talent, and there's definitely not sarcasm in my voice.
You know, it's obviously Fox and ESPN's favorite division.
That is a fact.
There's no shortage on getting any of these teams ever on
America's,
national TV.
America's teams in this division.
America's division. And maybe that explains a little bit.
It does make sense. I mean, you've got the Cowboys and the New York and DC and Philly, so I guess it makes sense from the TV standpoint, but still.
It does. As you can hear them talking, we got my co-hosts Josh and Jealous with us here today. How are you boys doing? What are you sipping on?
Doing good as usual. Wasn't really feeling beer today, so I jumped in the bourbon train. So this will be an interesting episode. So got to celebrate the Bucks win from last week. So have some bourbon here. So yeah, I'm having a little Dancing Goat limousine ride. Shout out to their distillery in Cambridge, Wisconsin. So it's delicious. Good sipping.
All right.
Good sipping whiskey.
All right. I am. Ooh. All right. Nice little sip there, buddy.
Oh yeah.
Ride that train indeed. That looked phenomenal. No messing around. I'm doing pretty good. I'm, very excited for dinner. The other day I made a chicken lasagna. So it was ground chicken, a bunch of herbs mixed up together.
Did you put in your
with lasagna?
Shout out Colt 45.
Colt 45 to zigzag, baby. That's all we need. Spinach, mushrooms, shitload of spinach, shitload of mushrooms, all layered up, and a bunch of Parmesan and some matzo, a little ricotta. The tomato, instead of a tomato sauce, I made a white cream sauce, all from scratch. That
sounds delicious.
So outside of the pasta, never dabbled in a homemade pasta. I hope to at some point, but. Put on the chef's hat on the other day and gonna freaking ran train. So here we go.
Attaboy.
Excited for that.
Phenomenal.
Got one portion left and excited. That's and then broccoli, nice little broccoli side dish, a little lemon juice, little parm, and some seasonings, and just roasted that up.
Do you have a broccoli beer as well?
No broccoli-based beer. I do have hop-based beer.
Okay.
It's from the Community Brewing Company down here in Dallas, Mosaic IPA. It is incredibly hoppy, 85 IBU, so that's out of 100. So that's how you know it's super hoppy. And then just, again, sticking with the high ABV beers again, solid 6.8% on these ones.
Attaboy.
So, yeah, I mean, there's times when, I've done this before where I'll put down a 6-pack of these and, a normal 6-pack, solid buzz, but,
that's a 12 or a regular.
This, putting a 6-pack of this, it'll knock you back on your ass a little bit, but, super tasty. One of the better high ABV beers. Definitely a sipper. Got
you beat on percentages today, though.
I think so. I hope so. You're probably not gonna have that kind of a bourbon.
I feel like that's the only kind of bourbon I could tolerate personally. On my end, I've got a Capital Brewery.
Appreciate the shout out, the Bucks shout out. Hashtag Bucks and Six. Once again. This is the sweetest thing ever. I cried. I cried that night. I did not expect to cry that night. And
that's so sweet.
I cried. Like, I couldn't believe it. I think what really did it for me was seeing Giannis, when he was sitting by himself on the bench.
Was that when he was on the bench?
Almost like a, like he was trying to hide back tears, kind of that kind of a face. And when I saw that, that's when I started crying. And, just the way that they built that team up, it was so special. Obviously, Giannis 15th overall pick out of Greece. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, however long ago it was, they were, him and his brothers selling CDs on the streets of Greece, and now they're all NBA champions, top of the world. So one of the coolest things ever.
Crazy that he's only 26.
Yeah.
That's nuts. He has a long career left.
He's got another, hopefully 10 plus years.
Yeah. 10 good ones.
It's nuts, man. It's so awesome. Chris Middleton was... he was a second-round pick out of A&M. He was a throw-in in a trade, and he's turned out to be, an all-star, second-best player on the team. Drew Holiday, we gave, I believe it was $5 gave away. I believe it was 4 or 5 first-rounders for him, some other picks. It's different drafting in the NBA than the NFL, obviously, just to make sure that's clear. But he played such a huge role. It's just so cool to, if the Brewers ever do it, if the Bucks winning it make me cry. If the Brewers win it, I think we might need a mop bucket, to clean up my tears.
Or a stretcher.
Yeah, or both. But hey, let's not get. I'm not going to try to get too ahead of myself on this one, man.
Hashtag not a basketball pod.
Yep. Hashtag not a sponsor.
Hashtag Diaz at Arm Sports, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts.
What are you drinking today, Rick?
I've got a Capital Brewery Wisconsin Amber. So, more Wisconsin stuff. I particularly like this one. I'm not a big amber guy usually, but this one's good. So, shout out there. Let's jump into the NFC East, our favorite division. Instead of going,
East, that's for sure.
Well, that's true.
Those rough.
Yep. Let's instead of doing this team by team, since it's hard to compare that way, we're going to go position by position and kind of break down the players in this division of who is relevant and what they mean for fantasy. I think naturally, because they show up first on every fantasy platform. Let's start with quarterbacks. I don't expect this is a difficult one, but who do you guys have as your QB1? And let's just go ahead and say 1 and 2. Give me both of them. I think they're probably the same.
I mean, they probably should be.
Yeah,
it's pretty easy. I've got Dak 1. I've got Jalen 2.
Yep.
I don't love Jalen Hurts this season necessarily. I guess I specifically don't love the Eagles this year at all. But Jalen is going to be the second best QB in this division, fantasy-wise. He's going to produce on the ground. And he did last year as a rookie. Hopefully he can take this to, take one more step, kind of develop into a bit more of an efficient passer. Adding Devontae Smith is only going to help, and hopefully they can be, just that entire roster can be a little bit more healthy than last year. I mean, the entire roster was completely destroyed last year, so I'm just assuming they're going to be a lot more healthy going into next year. Jalen going into his second year under center for Philly. What really concerns me is their coach, Nick Sirianni. That's the biggest reason that I'm pretty much out on the Eagles entirely, but maybe he's got something that he can unlock in Jalen. Maybe that entire offense that he can unlock, so that's why he has to fall as my second-ranked QB. Dak was, is the obvious number one. We saw what he did last year before he tore up his ankle. One of the nastiest injuries I've ever seen, but he was on pace for over 5,000-yard season.
It was like an insane season. It was like over 6,000 yards.
So yeah, over 6,000.
It was unsustainable, but incredible.
And don't expect those types of numbers. Don't expect a 6,000-yard season, but the hope still is, he's still got 3 badass receivers in CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, who I still think Michael Gallup's underrated. But let's move past that. We can get into that in the receiver section when we talk that position. But Dak was the obvious number one for me.
Yeah, I have the exact same order. Dak, unquestionably, their team by far has the best positional talent in the division. I mean, hands down, just all around. So no question, he's got best weapons, number one. I have Jalen as number 2 at 2. I am more up on him than you are, Joe. I think his rushing potential is going to help out a lot of people in fantasy this year. Their team's not that great, and he's going to end up getting in some red zone touchdowns. He's going to be rushing the ball when he needs to. They're going to be down in games, so he's going to be throwing a lot more. I think he could be a surprise this year.
Yeah, I'm with you both on these. Obviously, rankings-wise, these two are obvious. Dak, I kind of fully expect a 5,000-yard season, assuming he plays every game. And actually, part of that's because
defense is still atrocious as well. In
Dallas, the defense
so
still
they're
sucks.
They're going to try to have to outscore everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to win games 31-28 on a regular basis, I think,
or lose games 31-28,
or lose games. Yeah, they can lose it, and it doesn't matter for fantasy. So Dak is easily the number one guy here, and a top 5 QB in Dynasty, redraft, whatever. He's going to be awesome. Jalen Hurts is also the clear number 2. I think that, from my perspective, I see him as a poor man's Lamar Jackson, which is not the worst thing to be. He's just not as good of a runner and not as good of a passer, and Lamar is not that great of a passer, but he's really, obviously incredible at running. So Hurts just being a little less shifty and a little more lower your head and hit people. Just a slightly higher injury risk playing that kind of football, and his feet are what's going to carry him to fantasy gold, which he's absolutely capable of attaining.
That seems high. Gold? Fantasy relevance, yes. I wouldn't say fantasy
top
gold.
I think that his feet can get him to QB 8 or higher.
I think so too.
Yeah,
it's just the rushing potential.
There is that rushing potential, but
that's what sets a lot
we
of
touched on this as well.
Apart.
I personally, I just don't put Jalen in my top 10. The other concerning thing here is how long are the Eagles gonna keep Hurts as their starting quarterback?
That's fair. That's a good point.
If they keep losing, we were just talking about them in that quick hits episode that we released last week on Friday. We did talk about the potential of Deshaun getting traded to Philly. I'm not saying that's gonna. I think the Eagles are going to be garbage. I think they're going to go 4-12. Do you really think that they're going to run it back with Jalen Hurts next year? If they have that rough of a year, then no, they'll probably take a QB. Now, I do think he's still the second best QB in the division, just given how putrid the quarterback position is within this division, given QBs 3 and 4. But this is why I don't have him in my top 10 QBs for Dynasty, at least.
For Dynasty, I also would not be taking him in my top 10 either. I'm just saying, if he's going to be a relevant fantasy asset, it's going to be with his feet. His arm will never be
correct.
The thing that makes him a consistent starter. So if he's going to be great, it's going to be with his feet. And I feel iffy about that because of the way that he runs leads to potentially more injuries than Lamar sees, which is none right now. Let's move past those two and get to a couple of relevant players. I think.
Did you say
am I safe
a
in
couple
saying
of relevant or a couple irrelevant?
Irrelevant. Definitely irrelevant. I think we're probably all on the same page in saying that from a dynasty format, Daniel Jones belongs in the 3rd spot and Fitz in 4.
Yeah, redraft,
right?
I'd flip-flop it because I think Fitzpatrick will be a lot better for you this year. Daniel Jones is just hot trash. But even from a dynasty, from a dynasty aspect, how much longer of a leash does Daniel Jones have? So, it's
1 year.
It's better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, but it's only because Fitzpatrick is old. It's
end of his career.
Daniel Jones.
Nothing more you can do.
Unless Daniel Jones just steps up a ton this year, he's going to be a backup quarterback somewhere in the future. So if you're riding him in Dynasty as your QB1, you need to start looking for other options right now.
This is where
you are terrible at Dynasty. If he's your QB1 right now.
I actually somewhat strongly disagree with you, Josh. I would probably rather have Fitzpatrick over Daniel Jones even in Dynasty, because Daniel Jones is never going to be a starting QB for me in fantasy. and I know that Fitz could be, even if it's just a fill-in starter, and even if it's just for the next 2 years. So just knowing that I will never want Daniel Jones to ever start for me, I know that I can at least for the next, year to two for Fitz every once in a while.
Yeah, you don't know where Fitz
ideally,
is going to be next year.
Obviously, ideally not as my QB1, but even if we look 4 or 5 years out when Fitz is retired and Daniel Jones, what is he going to do? Is he a backup? Who gives a shit about age at that point? That's why I personally would. That's why I have Fitz ranked higher than the Lego character Daniel Jones.
Got the jawline
he
of a Lego.
Literally looks like a Lego character. The skater in Lego Island. He's totally got
I don't
that
know
face
the reference,
and those
but
eyes.
I'll take
one of
your
those
word for it.
policemen in that show. That perfect face for it.
I'm on board with what you're saying here, Jell, and reality is I don't want either of them on my team at any point in time, but there is technically a scenario where Daniel Jones stays a starter because physically he has the tools. It's just a matter of can he actually put it all into an offense and make the throws.
Why do you say that he has the
productive
tools outside of being able
he has
to
an arm and he has
run
legs.
a 4.4 or whatever the hell he ran when he had that 80-yard scramble and then tripped at the 5 like a douche.
Yeah, that looked really bad. He's got kind of a strong arm. It's not to the level of all the other guys, but he has a pro level arm. That's what I'm saying.
How much upside do you really see from him?
I'm not saying there's a lot of upside, but I'm saying that if he can iron out the other things like decision making and timing and the little things that make a quarterback outstanding at football and at fantasy, if he irons out those things, then maybe he stays a starter for another while.
But let's take Jameis Winston for an example, who,
sure,
he has the fine physical traits, but his downfall was obviously his decision making. Given that he threw 30 picks, he still put up insane numbers in fantasy, at least.
He did. He was in Bruce Arians' system, which says air it out all the time.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things with Daniel Jones is that since he's come into the league, their line has just been terrible. I mean, he doesn't have time back there to even do anything. You're not going to learn and develop when you drop back and immediately have to make a decision and get the ball away because your line can't block anybody.
I guess my whole point is I think that I could get 2 years out of relevancy from Fitzpatrick where if there's ever a really bad matchup for my QB1 or an injury or a bye week for my QB1, I would feel fine putting in Fitzpatrick, where I would not feel fine putting in Jones now, and I would not in the future. So I would rather take 2 years of, a little bit of Fitzmagic than, 4, 5, 6 years of a guy that I would never, ever want to actually play.
Perfectly valid point. Josh,
I was
go
just going to
ahead.
say, the moral of the story with the quarterbacks out of the NFC East, take Dak if you need a QB2, somebody to have some potential, have Jalen Hurts, and then find someone else to go.
Yep. Fitz will not be in the league for 2 more years is my prediction, but let's move on. Running backs.
That beard does tell me that retirement is coming, though. Have you seen that?
It sure looks like it.
Sean Connery beard.
Sean Connery.
Welcome to the Rock.
Yeah, that's Sean Connery, the Celebrity Jeopardy from SNL.
Celebrity Jeopardy
that's
on
when
SNL.
SNL really peaked for me was that
great.
Celebrity Jeopardy. Now I will say the Black Jeopardy that they're doing now that they've done over the last couple of years, that is
that's
amazing.
hilarious too.
That is hilarious. Yeah. That one episode with Louis C.K.
That was good.
That was before
the Tom
Louis
Hanks one
had
was
his
great too.
Own goddamn weird, too many sexual assault stories just in this world. But this was before that.
Yep.
But
yeah, Tom Hanks is a MAGA supporter, fitting right in with the same answers for most of them. Running backs. Let's talk Saquon Barkley because he's obviously at our top of the running backs list. Is there anything to say besides that he's the most physically gifted
have you seen
player
his
in the NFL?
quads? They're somehow better than they were before his injury. Wow. There's a pic that came out from Bleacher Report that I saw. It would have been a couple days ago, and this dude, he's got, A.J. Dillon size quads, but it's more ripped. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that he actually had an 8-pack on each of his quads, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where he got those 2 extra beers to duct tape on
there. Yeah, all right, so Saquon's our number one.
Okay, just real quick, where does he fall in your guys? Does he fall in your top 3, top 2, top 4, top 5?
To me, it's...
where do you throw him in there for that running back crop?
If we pretend that he has a fully healthy season, or at least as healthy as all the other top guys, then I'm probably going to put him at number 2.
Behind CMC?
CMC. I'll put CMC 1, Saquon 2, assuming full health for everyone.
You're taking him over Dalvin then?
Over Dalvin, Kamara, Henry, whatever. The pure physical talent of Saquon and the gradually improving Giants offense gives me hope that he can finish as the number 2.
I think I agree with you. The only one I'd flip flop. I'd still go Dalvin.
I guess I'm pretty much even between Dalvin and Saquon, but so I wanted to just see what your guys' input would be.
Yep, good thought there. These next I think the next 2, maybe 3, probably just 2 are going to be debatable here. I want to see what you guys are thinking. Josh, I think I know where you're going to go here. So give me your 2 and 3 running backs out of the NFC East.
2, I've got Antonio Gibson. I really like his potential in Washington, and they get him more involved in the passing game. I mean, he'll be right up there at the end of the season. He could be top 5. I mean, he just looked phenomenal last year when they finally started giving him the ball. It'll be interesting to see with Fitzpatrick there, but I don't see much of an issue with that. I mean, he didn't really have a great quarterback last year. I mean, it was Alex Smith for the most part, and then was it Taylor Heineken in playoffs, so Heineken.
I actually almost bought a sixer of Heineken for this episode.
Nice.
Now I kind of wish that I did, just so it would be kind of division relevant, but had to go, stay in the high ABB
I've got
train.
Zeke at 3, which, I mean, there's no knock on Zeke, but dynasty format, I mean, Gibson's on his 2nd year, and Elliott is... He showed a little bit of a drop-off last year, but I think a lot of that had to do with Dak, and he had Andy Dalton, the red rifle back there. So it was... Yeah. It means Zeke didn't really have much of a chance. I mean, they knew that they were going to focus...
The beige water pistol, you mean?
Yeah, the beige water pistol. So, but those are my 2 and 3. I mean, I'd be happy to have either of those guys in Dynasty.
Joe, what do you think?
I guess I'm personally... I guess I've been out on Zeke over the last couple of years, but I've seen some of his videos in camp, and I love the campus pack. There's so much stuff out there now, but he looks trimmer just in general, and maybe he could help get some of that speed and some of that dynamic movement back. And I heard a rumor that he's now at 218 pounds, which is the lightest that he's been since his freshman year at Ohio State. And that's really when he was at his most dynamic state. That's when he would wear that crop top jersey and actually show off those abs with pride. Or, over the last couple of years, he'd have that crop top and it would just be kind of sad, a little pathetic, no abs showing, like, just meh.
Well, the abs were in the cooler.
Really, it showed in his play. I mean, it seemed like he lost a bit of a step. You could see that he wasn't nearly as dynamic as he was in previous years. And I guess I'd love to see now what he can do in what, I guess it's not technically a new body. It's more of he's bringing back his old body. So I see a bit more of an upside for Zeke now. After seeing some of these camp reports, some of these camp pictures and videos, I guess I don't have an issue with you, Josh, taking Gibby over Zeke. This is just something that when I saw these reports and saw these videos and such, it kind of renewed my thoughts on Zeke. So I probably go Zeke and then Gibson. I mean, Gibson is the obvious 2nd or 3rd back, for sure.
If I had to take a guess here, Eric, I think you side with me on this one.
That's correct. Both of you said exactly. I predicted what both of you would say, and it was exactly what I thought. I am with Josh on this. I will take Gibson over Zeke in a dynasty format, and probably in a redraft format too. I like hearing Zeke's going to be lighter and trim again, and hopefully that's good for him. But yeah, give me Gibson. I'm all about that Gibson life. Let's move on to 4 through whatever. I think we're gonna all have the same RB4 in Miles Sanders. Is that correct, fellas?
No, I actually don't. I just.
I mean, what did you do instead of Miles Sanders?
Now, Miles Sanders this year is the guy to have, but I actually like Tony Pollard better. I think once he either gets out of his contract or Zeke leaves. I mean, we saw what he did with Zeke out last year, and he's a hell of a runner, and I really liked seeing his style play. I mean, like I said, he's behind Zeke right now, so with redraft, absolutely not. Miles Sanders is the one to have if you need a running back. I personally am not taking him anywhere, but in dynasty format, I think Pollard, once he gets his chance, I liked what I've seen.
I like the take. I like the take a lot. I had Pollard at 5 and Sanders at 4, but I am interested in what you're saying. Obviously, with Pollard, it's a risk. We need him to go to another team, or we need Zeke to get out of there. But, I agree. I like the talent of Pollard more at this point. We've seen enough from Sanders, and Philly has seen enough, apparently, because they keep filling their team with running backs. But at least as of right now, with everything we do know, Sanders feels like the safer choice between the two. But I think I agree the upside of Pollard is better. Those are my 4 and 5. Jell, what are you doing at 4 and 5?
Mr. Pecoraro, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you 0 points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
From the puppy who lost the boy.
That's how I feel about your thought. I think it's dumb. I know that you both are weighed down on Miles Sanders, but he's still the starting running back. Yes, Tony Pollard has been sweet as a backup, but that's my point. As a backup. Obviously, the Eagles did draft Kenneth Gainwell, but he's more of a receiving back. Boston Scott.
They signed Kerryon Johnson as well.
Kerryon Johnson. Oh, yeah, they have Jordan Howard, too. Like, sweet. I don't think any of those guys are going to be worth a damn. And Miles Sanders is still that number 1 starting back in Philly.
That's what I literally said, was that this year I like Miles Sanders better. But for the long term, I'd rather have Tony Pollard. I mean, Miles Sanders, you've said numerous times on this show that you think Philly's offense is just trash. And, I mean, it's
still a starting running back.
That's what I'm saying. You missed my point with it, because I was talking dynasty format for the long term on it. Is I'd rather have Tony Pollard with either Zeke gone or Tony Pollard going somewhere else once his contract's up, as opposed to Miles Sanders just doing whatever he's doing in Philly.
I mean, we've never seen Tony Pollard getting
when Zeke's out last year.
I think that Pollard last year showed that he was more dynamic than Zeke showed that he was last year, but he's never shown that he can be a number 1 back over a long stretch of time. A lot of times, these backup running backs, once they're given a number 1 role, once they're not in that backup role and they're kind of forced to be moved into a starting role, they're not the same guy. That happens all the time. Yes.
Is Pollard your number 5, Joe? Okay, me too. Just wanted to confirm that we are right there with Pollard after Sanders. Okay. Any other thoughts on those two before we jump into the rest of the garbage gang that is the NFC East running backs?
No.
All right. In that case, I will just say my next 2 that I put out there, this would be 6 and 7, is Kenny Gainwell, for reasons that we just brought up. Freshly drafted by the Eagles, pass catcher, filling a role that they need filled. And then J.D. McKissick, strictly because of... Yeah, well, I guess he and Mitch Trubisky are brothers. He catches passes, and even if Gibson takes some, McKissick's still going to have a role, so he, by default, falls in as the next guy that gets any action for fantasy at all. Are you guys in the same boat? Are you seeing
those are
something
my
different?
identical two that I had next: Kenny Gainwell, J.D. McKissic.
Nice.
I had a slight disagreement on between McKissic and Devontae Booker.
It's been hard for Booker for years, and he still hasn't done shit.
You know, and thank God that he's out of Oakland
And Denver.
And Denver.
Denver too. Yeah,
It's on his third team.
I guess
He's getting old there,
Third
guy.
time's a charm, baby.
I guess I think that he can be, kind of have that he'll be in that same role as McKissic, that passing down back. I guess what I question about Fitzpatrick is, how often do you see him really, I mean, he's a
good point.
Wing it
Yeah.
kind of guy. He wants to throw the ball down the field, and yeah. He's 38. He's got nothing to lose, so he's going to be balls to the walls, aggressive, throwing the ball downfield. Probably use McKissic a lot less than Alex Smith ever did, or Heineken. And Devontae Booker, I think he's going to be a pretty perfect running back complement for Saquon. When Saquon doesn't need to be out there, and I think also a compliment to Daniel Jones, who seems like he does dump the ball off.
That's fair.
So
the only thing
Yeah,
with
I would have McKissic right after Booker, no question.
where do you have Gainwell at 6 then?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, the only thing that
Okay.
scares me with Booker is Saquon is such a workhorse when he's healthy. He doesn't come off the field. So
And that's a
Right.
really
literally
good point.
just
Yeah,
their spelling,
for sure.
So that's the only downfall with
For
him.
sure.
Always like the potential.
The good news there, though, is that the last 2 years Saquon has not stayed healthy. So Booker is valuable to be sitting on a bench waiting for Saquon to get hurt, which we don't want to happen, but
So
it
they
could
signed
happen.
Devontae Freeman.
Good. Yeah,
Right.
go bring
Again,
him back.
uh,
Why don't they trade for Wayne Gallman? Why don't they get him back too while they're at it?
Are there any other RB names that you think are worth bringing up? The only other one I had on my list at all was Kerryon Johnson, and that's just in
I
had
had
Sanders gets hurt,
Boston
which
Scott
he has
in
every
there.
year. Eagles running backs,
And
man.
probably PPR, a little bit of PPR potential there. But given that Gainwell is there now, he's never going to be an every down back. And if Sanders ended up getting hurt, it's probably going to be Gainwell taking over that, that primary running back spot. But it could, at least, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Josh, any other thoughts before we move on?
No, I mean for the
What
most part,
about
it's
your boy,
all-
Jordan Howard?
Chicago Bears.
No, I mean he's never on any of their teams.
thought he was still in Philly.
I don't think so. Pretty sure he's a free agent.
All right. Regardless of that, let's move on to the. Let's jump to the tight ends because the wide receivers will be more fun.
Just so
and
that
we'll
this
save
is
them for the end.
known,
You have
Jordan
another running
Reginald
back?
Howard is a running back for the Philadelphia Eagles in the National Football League. Straight from
Okay.
Wikipedia.
What a crowded
you
running
go.
back room. That's
So they have like
disgusting.
5 running backs on this.
And they're all going to
Yes,
be
they do.
disappointments.
Yes, that is the fact there. If you can take all of the other running backs we mentioned, let's go to tight ends because that should be quick and easy. Let's start with 1 and 2. I want to throw it to Jealous. Give me your 1 and 2.
I'm actually super torn about these two guys. The two are
Yeah.
Dallas Goedert and Logan Thomas. I love Logan
Oh.
Thomas. I love Logan
Interesting.
Thomas.
Well, this will be fun.
I guess I'm
I don't.
I'm out on Evan Ingram. I don't know how he was possibly a Pro Bowler last year to begin with. That's
That doesn't make any sense.
that's
to
that
me.
Tonyan
New York
wasn't.
media over
Yeah.
Robert. I mean, him over Robert
Funyuns.
Tonyan. But I'm going Dallas Goedert 1, but kind of reluctantly, honestly. I almost want to go
Yeah.
Logan Thomas as my top tight end.
Yeah, that's hard to believe for
I-
me, but I feel you on the Dallas Goedert part.
I don't know. There's something about him that he's got the size, he's got plenty of athleticism. I feel like he's really starting to come into his own, given that he was a QB in college at, over at Vatek, and last year that he showed that he's starting to really get it, So I really like the upside of Logan Thomas. I'm not enough for me to put him as the number 1 tight end, but I'll put him at 2.
So I just want to confirm, do you feel comfortable that he's coming into his own at 30 years old?
I mean, I don't love it, but Darren Waller didn't come into his own until his late 20s too.
Yeah, no, that's a fair comp.
I'm never thinking that Logan Thomas is going to put up Darren Waller type of numbers, but don't get me wrong. But
my thought on Thomas here is just that Washington now has Curtis Samuel and De'Ami Brown and a couple other healthy guys that they had from last year, and Fitzpatrick at the helm, who likes to throw it deep, and those guys all like to go deep.
Also used Gesicki in Miami last year
because he had limited receiver options. Now he's got lots of receiver options. I think that Fitz is just going to either air it out or hand it off, and I don't see a ton of work. I just don't think that Thomas is going to outdo what he did last year, and for that reason, he falls lower on this list for me.
I guess I don't know what kind of offense Ron Rivera is running in Washington versus how that compares to what he ran in Carolina. And
let's look at personnel.
Of course,
there
Greg
too.
Olsen is a more talented tight end coming out of Miami and everything. Obviously Greg Olsen was plenty involved. I'm not saying Logan Thomas is going to put up Greg Olsen type of numbers. But I guess I'm high on him. That's it.
Okay, that's fine. Josh, what's your 1-2?
We got Dallas Goedert. I think we can all agree. I mean, LSU torn with Logan, but I think he's probably our consensus between the three of us. We've seen the talent from him when Zach Ertz has been on the field with him, and Zach Ertz is either going to be traded or probably maybe even a roster cut. So it's going to be Goddard as their tight end 1. He's got all the talent in the world. I think he's going to be a target favorite of Jalen Hurts. So I think he's somebody that could be a sneaky top 5-6 tight end by the time this is done, depending on how much work Jalen throws to him. And then my number 2 is Evan Ingram. Just with talent-wise, he's great. He's one of the few receiving options that they have in New York, and I think he's the clear number 2 here, but that's just my take.
I guess what concerns me on Evan Ingram, outside of just his own inability to actually catch passes, is just think. I mean, all these new weapons, all these receivers that they're bringing in. Saquon is back. They drafted Kadarius Toney, brought in Kenny Golladay. I don't see. There's no way that Ingram's going to get more targets next year or in the future than he did last year. So I guess that's just another reason why I've got him as my 3rd tight end.
See, and I'm not with you on that because I was torn between Evan Ingram and Blake Jarwin as my 2. I've got Jarwin as a very close second because we saw what Dustin Schultz did last year in Dallas's offense.
Andy Dalton Schultz.
No.
Dalton
Schultz. Yeah. That how he did in Dallas's offense last year with Andy Dalton as the quarterback. And you've got Dak in there now, and Blake Jarwin could be a surprise tight end.
I put Blake Jarwin as number 2 for everything you just said, and I put Ingram at 3 and Thomas at 4. Jealous, your arguments make me think maybe I should put Thomas at 3 instead of 4, but that's the way I saw it falling. I think that Dak is going to throw so much, and Jarwin is going to step into what should be the tight end 1 role. Sure, he'll split some time with Dalton Schultz, but I think that Jarwin's going to end up pretty high among NFC East tight ends behind Goddard. Goddard's just the safest guy here.
Yeah, and Zach Ertz wasn't even, if you want to throw him as your 5th, 6th tight end?
Yeah, I put him at 6.
Behind Schultz.
Behind Dalton Schultz. Yep.
And Goddard has shown that he can be the man there, and who...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the one. No question.
Yeah. No the one you want. The rest of these guys hopefully are not going to be your tight end 1, and either you're waiting super long on tight ends or these are your backups, and that's fine. Any other thoughts on those before we jump to wide receivers?
I
know.
I made my case pretty clear.
Okay.
So
Sure. Let's jump into wide receivers then. Give me your. Let's just start with top.
why don't we?
Let's start with top 3.
Why don't we just start with the top 1, the top 2, I guess, because and this is where I want to start.
Think we're gonna have the same 2?
Because I think CeeDee Lamb and Terry McLaurin. That's very flip floppable. That's 1A, 1B. Those are my top 2. It was tough for me to pick between those guys, so that's kind of why I want to hear what you guys think, where you guys fall on those
I was the exact
2 players, assuming those
They're
are
my 1A
your
and
top
1B.
2 guys.
Terry, I think, is hand and above a better, more talented receiver, but the Cowboys' offense and Dak Prescott throwing the ball is also intriguing and puts CD up there too. It just makes me a little bit nervous. Dynasty with Terry, with Fitzpatrick coming in just on a 1-year deal, but Terry's been a monster with, Alex Smith back there.
Haskins.
Just Haskins. Look at the numbers.
And Heineken.
So that it doesn't really scare me. He's kind of like an Allen Robinson, where Allen Robinson, he puts up numbers regardless of who's throwing him the ball. They're just that good. But I have Terry as my 1, CD as a 2, but it's a 1A and 1B for me.
I went similar. I went Lamb, Terry. I don't necessarily agree that McLaurin's that much more talented than CD. CD just came off of a rookie season at 900 yards. Usually that's a second season for most players. And I think that within 2 years' time, we're going to be seeing 1,300-yard seasons out of CD Lamb. So dynasty perspective, give me CD all day long. And then, I'll put Terry at 2 just from a pure talent wide receiver perspective. Jealous, you're looking like you got something.
I guess I'm going to go the same way that Josh went. I'm going Terry 1, CD 2. Reason, get out of the dark like the cave that you were in.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize how dark it was in here.
No, I'm going Terry 1, CD 2, and a lot of that is because, like Josh said, Terry's putting up numbers regardless of who that QB is.
So what did Lamb do last year when Dak was hurt?
Yeah, and Dalton seems like he's always been able to get his receivers yards, even back when he was in Cincy, back when they had AJ and I don't know how far back we need to go, but AJ was he was obviously a beast.
Yes,
with
he was. Dalton,
fantasy and on the field, actual NFL on the field. So that goes back to what I was saying about CeeDee Lamb, and Dak's gonna have other targets to feed in Amari and in Michael Gallup.
There's a lot of mouths to feed,
and Zeke too, and McLaurin doesn't really have that same.
He does have a lot of mouths to feed around him too.
Not talent-wise, though.
Not to the same level,
way
but it's
harder
not that bad.
On Curtis Samuel than I am. I've never really been a huge Curtis Samuel fan. He'll.
If you had him on your team last year, you would
roll in Washington, but I don't see him stealing too many balls from McLaurin.
No, he's not somebody that commands targets either. Where Cooper's there for a while. He signed a huge deal that he's tied there. But Dak is capable of having 2.
Yeah,
I agree.
Dak can do it.
So that,
but he's still got Gallup, and Washington doesn't have much for a third receiver. De'Ami Brown.
Yeah. And who's Washington's QB next year?
Ryan Fitzpatrick, who
probably not. Let's get real. Yeah, next year.
I
think that
it's still
Fitzpatrick retires.
He's on the 1-year deal.
I don't think
but still, it scares me. It
goes back to what Josh was saying, where Terry, regardless of the QB, you could have Tyler Heineke back there, and McLaurin's still putting up numbers.
Sort of. At the end of the season, yes, but the consistency part is a little off with Terry sometimes.
I was totally torn between these two guys. I just have more belief in McLaurin than I do in CD. So.
Sure.
I basically go, Terry by a hair above CD, but I'm not going to be, I'm not going to get upset if somebody's going to take, if you're taking CeeDee Lamb over Terry McLaurin, it's like I said, it's by a razor thin margin for me.
And what that really means is that either of us could be right,
Correct.
and we're not going to know until it happens. This is not a obvious, we are definitely going to be right about this. In that case, let's move on to 3 and 4, maybe even 5. I don't know. Josh, what do you think for 3, 4, 5 if they are obvious to you?
My 3 is CeeDee's teammate, Amari Cooper. I mean, with that offense there, he's the clear cut. And he's puts up numbers. It's not very consistent, but at the end of the season, he'll be right up there in the top 12, top 15. So you got Dak there. Dak signed for long term. Mari's there for long term. So the longevity with both of those is great. 4 and 5, they're kind of like a 4A, 4B for me. I don't like it, but he's got so much talent, and I'm hoping his QB situation changes for the better in coming seasons. But Kenny Galladay is my 4. I still like his talent. And then 5, I've got Devonta Smith.
I would have...
Okay.
Well, that's why I said it was a 4A, 4B, so it was like a...
It's not really a toss-up. I have Smith cemented in their hardcore of Galladay. I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan of Galladay at all with that. With his QB situation, Devontae has not in terms of airmail, but the talent level on Smith is far superior to the talent level over Galladay. Kenny's very touchdown dependent. I don't know how many times he's going to be getting too much in terms of red zone looks or goal line looks. Devontae Smith does a lot of his best work in the middle of the field. Between the 20s, that doesn't always end up resulting in the best fantasy numbers because you do need those touchdowns. But if he gets enough work inside the 20s, those middle 60 yards, then he'll end up, creating opportunities with those big 60, maybe 50, 60 yard receptions, whether it's a slant or, he's kind of an all around receiver. You could play him all over the place. So he's for sure my number 4 receiver in this division.
Yeah, I'm right there with Jealous. Give me Amari, and then very close behind him, Devontae Smith, and then Galladay, third of those 3. For me, it's close because Cooper's getting older, and he's had years of consistency, question marks, and Devontae Smith is really insanely talented. He might not have all the size that everyone wants to see, but the league has proven that guys who know how to run routes and are super talented, great hands, can beat their defenders. They have a long-lasting career of success. That is exactly what Terry McLaurin is, and that is what Devontae Smith probably is going to be. So for me, it's close between him and Cooper, but obviously Cooper wins out of mostly quarterback situation, and then Galladay after that, just because he's more talented than the rest of these guys, but his QB situation sucks, and he's past his first contract now. He's not the young buck he once was. He's probably only going to come down with 60 receptions, and he'll probably crack 1,000 yards again, but it won't be by a lot, and we'll see how many touchdowns Daniel Jones can support. Just
to make it known, I did have Amari as my number 3. I jumped straight into 4 and 5, but Amari was my number 3. Yeah.
Yes, consensus Amari at 3. Let's jump past the fantasy starters into the fantasy mostly bench stashes. Hopefully, who do you have coming after Galladay, Josh?
After Galladay, I've got Curtis Samuel as 6. I like his potential in Washington, coming back into the Ron Rivera system. So expect good things from him this year. After that, I've got his teammate, De'Ami Brown. I like his potential.
Right.
So I got him at 7, and then Jalen Reagor at 8. I still like Jalen Reagor. He didn't do a whole lot last year, but I think he's very talented. And hopefully with an offseason working with Jalen, they can get on the same page and get at least something turned around. But those are my next 3. I think those are the next up for potential.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna take somebody that you did not even mention, and I'm gonna go Michael Gallup.
Gallup.
It's ironic that he's on the Cowboys, galloping on horses.
You live in Dallas.
Thanks.
Full circle.
Yeah, well, we talked about saltines already on the other episode, so we don't need to do that again. Gallup's talent is... I couldn't believe that the Cowboys did end up taking CeeDee Lamb in the first last year. I thought that Gallup had shown that he's worthy of being a second receiver. And I
actually couldn't believe that either. That was weird.
He's on a contract year, so who knows? He could end up going to possibly a contender at the trade deadline, depending on how the Cowboys end up shaking out. But there's no way that they can give him a big contract after that.
That's why I had him down the list a bit, just because
give him
I don't know where he's going to be next year, halfway through the season, and he's got a great situation with Dak throwing him the ball, and there's not too many other quarterbacks I'd rather have than Dak throwing me the ball.
I just think that he's going to end up, after this season, he'll end up in a starting role, and therefore I would have him ahead of Curtis Samuel, who I just touched on. I'm just not super high on. And then I've got him ahead of Jalen Reagor as well, who is going into his second year. I mean, there is potential for him there, but I'll go Gallup, then Samuel, then Reagor.
And just for clarification, who comes after that?
And then, it would be De'Ami Brown.
Okay, all right. So that's the four we're going to clump together here then. For me, I went Curtis 1 out of this group, De'Ami 2, Gallup 3, Reagor 4. I'm definitely a Curtis believer, but I also had him last year, which was by far his best season as a fantasy receiver. He had plenty of touchdowns and just consistent production every single week for like 10 weeks in a row. So I really liked having Curtis Samuel last year, and I'm hopeful that reuniting with Ron Rivera and having a quarterback who likes to air it out a little bit can mean good things for Curtis this season. De'Ami, love him too. Huge believer in his long-term future. He's not just a deep threat like he was at North Carolina. He can do more than that, and he's going to prove it when he actually gets to be on an NFL field and run some different routes. And then Gallup, for all the reasons Jealous said, yeah, I'm a fan. I hope he goes to a great team next year where he's a good fit. That's the one fear that I have, is his team that he plays for in 2 years. And then, Reagor coming into his second year. I just don't like his QB situation. And I wish he didn't have so many,
turn off.
So many years left in Philly. I don't want that part of his future. So that's the only reason that I'm down on him more. But moving past those four, I think we're kind of breaking it into tiers mostly here. So the next tier, which is basically the last one, Jealous, why don't you hit me with what you have for the remaining guys that you're interested in considering out of this?
Well, this just comes down to the Giants
situation. This is mostly Giants. You're right.
For me here, I would go, I guess, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. I'd probably go Toney over those three guys. Not thrilled about it, but they did take him in the first round, use him in a multitude of ways. Possibly that Percy Harvin role, but hopefully stay on the field a little bit more. Sterling Shepard probably would be my second guy. Reason of that, just he seems to just he's just steady. He's not going to wow you.
His play style.
He might not throw up too many donuts. Where he's just gonna be just complete dog shit. So Shepard and then Darius Slayton, but you could flip flop Slayton and Shepard, and I wouldn't have any issue with that.
Yeah, Slayton and Shepard are two guys that I don't really care. Whoever you want to have.
Yeah,
Toney interests me a little bit, just being a rookie. He's kind of like a Devo Ayuk, where he can do a lot of different things with the ball. And then this is kind of just going back to why I had Kenny Galladay rated so high. I mean, somebody's got to catch the ball in this system. I mean, they're going to be down in games, and nobody was really that high on Evan Ingram and that. But yeah, no, I like
the only thing
upside.
There's just something about Kenny Galladay is one of 6 weapons.
Yeah,
and so that's why I guess why I'm not really too high on anybody for the Giants outside of Saquon.
Yeah, realistically, I won't have any other Giants besides Saquon on any team this year. Just from a value perspective, I don't want to deal with it. But I would agree, those are the next receivers of relevance. There's a couple Eagles guys out there. One of them might do something between Fulgham and Ward. I don't want either of them really. Leave him on the.
I mean, Fulgham, he had
a couple games in a row.
Couple of games, but especially late in the year, he just completely fell off.
Yeah. So leave those guys on waivers. You could probably do that with Darius Slayton. Could sit on the waivers. Shepard's probably going to be rostered, and Tony will too. But I'm not excited about any of those guys as a whole. Tony, obviously, from a dynasty perspective, is the best of the bunch because he's the only unknown out of this group, and the rest of these guys have done enough for us to say we know what their ceiling looks like. Any other players you want to bring up out of the NFC East before we wrap this one up?
That pretty much covers anything that I had. Is there any, backup QBs that you guys would be interested in? Heineke? No, you're not going to roster him.
Right.
Just given that even though Fitzmagic is only on a 1-year deal, they're probably going to end up drafting somebody next year. You're not going to roll with Heineke. I don't really have anything else to bring up. John Ross was just signed with the Giants. Yeah. So,
gross.
That's just one more freaking guy. Now,
nightmare.
I'd assume that if he makes the team, he's going to play some sort of a...
Also forget about Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, actually, yeah. Good call.
Gross.
Good call out there.
Well, I'm glad that I did not have Ingram as my number 2. I'd like to downgrade him to number 4.
So I guess that's...
I'll put Logan Thomas up one.
Another weapon on the Giants. So that Daniel Jones has no excuses.
Yeah, if he fucks up, he's done.
Yeah, nothing.
Yep. If he sucks for 8 games, he might be done. I don't even know who their backup is, but it doesn't matter.
They still have
will know that he's
drafted in the 6th a couple of years ago.
Whoever's backing up Daniel Jones is not a good sign of the future.
Bring back Eli.
Yeah. This further confirms that you should not have anyone besides Dak and Hurts from the NFC East on your roster for QBs. All right. Well, that'll do it for the NFC East. We're going to get into some more interesting divisions in the next one. But you guys got any last-minute plugs before we sign off?
No, I just hope everybody did their homework assignment from the last episode and maybe pick one of the other options this time. Maybe if you rated us, leave a review or tell a friend, or if you wrote a review, rate or tell a friend. And
you do have the option to rate, review, tell a friend.
Yeah. For the overachievers out there.
Yeah. There's a couple of them out there that Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at Dead Arm Sports. Use that hashtag DAS. Hit us up in the DMs. Slide into them hardcore. We'll get you back. Might read something in the air. Something that's worthy of being read on the air. So send us some good shit, and we'll make sure to call you out, and we can discuss it.
Absolutely. Otherwise, thanks for joining us on this NFC East journey, and we will catch you on the next one.
Deuces.